The manhwa begins with someone rising from the ground, covered in blood, as a winged man stands before him. The celestial being declares, "God is dead." Humanity worshipped gold and revered arcane engineering until, in the end, they became slaves to themselves. The man holding a sword questions how this can be fair. His opponent wraps the blade in a powerful aura, but despite this he charges forward, asking why this even exists. He screams as he swings his sword, only to be utterly obliterated by a colossal explosion from his enemy. It is then revealed that this is all part of the most popular apocalyptic fantasy game of the moment, Arcane Seoul. The defeated man screams in fury, calling the game a pay-to-win garbage. His name is Kim Joonsoo, a 22-year-old university student. His opponent mocks him, saying that he did pretty well for a free-to-play player, but in the end, it was his bad luck. After all, he had been playing on auto mode the whole time. The enemy's ID is rich heavenly demon Chan Joonsoo insults him, but the opponent simply prepares to end the fight, admitting that it was fun and that he had never seen a player get this far without spending money. Joonsoo is in a public place and clearly furious. He yells, outraged that he had invested 10,000 hours into the game, only to be surpassed by someone who spent thousands of dollars. He sighs, realizing that the real idiot was him, wasting time on this terrible game. He decides that at least he'll do his daily missions before focusing on his homework. After all, even though he hates the game, he still sticks to his routines. With little hope, he does a free gacha pull, already expecting a terrible result, just like every other time, probably getting another generic warrior named Kim. However, when the draw finishes, he is shocked. A platinum chest appears on the screen and his heart races. When he finally sees the character he got, he is astonished to realize it's the heavenly demon himself, an SSR unit. He wonders how the hell he pulled this off, as it's the best character in the game. The chances of getting the heavenly demon in a free draw are ridiculously low. There are an absurd number of zeros in that percentage. Excited, he begins to dance in public, declaring that this game now deserves the Game of the Year award and that he needs to start leveling up his new character. It is revealed that the most efficient way to level up a character in Arcane Seoul is by sacrificing other already leveled characters to serve as experience. Now Joonsoo no longer feels envious of the whale players, the ones who spend fortunes on the game. He decides to use all the countless warrior Kims he's accumulated over his thousands of hours of play to strengthen his heavenly demon. On the screen we see the characters being consumed one by one, their experience pouring into his new champion. With a smile on his face, he says that he'll finally be able to play the game just like the whales. But in the middle of his excitement, he completely forgets that he's in a public place and starts walking absent-mindedly, right into the middle of the street. When he looks to the right, he realizes, of course, the phone slips from his hands and he mutters that this situation feels strangely familiar. When he opens his eyes again, he's staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, completely confused. He wonders why he's in a hospital. His head throbs and then the memory comes rushing back. He walked right into traffic like a complete idiot and nearly got run over. He mentally curses himself for being so careless. Suddenly, a woman enters the room, calling him Warrior Kim, surprised that he's awake. He furrows his brow and asks what she's talking about. The woman says she'll call the doctor and leaves in a hurry. Joonsoo is puzzled by the name she used, and when he looks at the clipboard with his information next to the bed, he's shocked. It clearly says Warrior Kim. Additionally, the report indicates that he suffered a dislocation and a concussion due to the accident. He wonders what kind of absurd mistake this is and lets out a long sigh. Perhaps, deep down, he really does feel guilty for sacrificing all his Warrior Kims to gain experience, but that still doesn't explain why his name on the clipboard says Warrior Kim. Trying to make sense of the situation, he attempts to get up, but the instant he puts weight on his leg, a searing pain shoots through his body, and he lets out a deafening scream. A nurse rushes into the room, telling him that he can't move yet. Still writhing in pain, he asks why it hurts so much. At that moment, the doctor enters the room and explains that he was hit by a truck and, considering the circumstances, got off with few injuries. Still completely confused, Joonsoo furrows his brow and asks what they're talking about. The doctor responds that they still need to do more tests and that he'll need an MRI and a magical vision test. He freezes when he hears the word magical and wonders what the hell they're saying. Is he having a stroke? Is he still dreaming? Meanwhile, at the reception, they're calculating the costs of his hospitalization, including the tests such as the CT scan and MRI. When they finally give him the total, his heart almost stops. 22.3 million won, around $16,000. Totally outraged, he retorts that he was there for just 4 days, so how can the bill be this absurd? The receptionist, with complete calm, answers that he doesn't have insurance and has to pay everything out of pocket. Confused, he asks what she's talking about. After all, every Korean has national health insurance. The woman looks at him as though he's delirious and responds with a question. What are you talking about? You don't have insurance from the Legion or the Magic Tower. A chill runs down Joonsoo's spine when he hears those names. He doesn't fully understand what's going on, but those words sound strangely familiar. Legion, Megacorp, Magic Tower, Sacred Order. Then it hits him. These are the 4 factions that dominate Arcane Seoul. The world where God abandoned humanity. Where arcane science advanced drastically. Where Earth was overrun by monsters. Where humans modified their own bodies to survive. His mind starts to fail him. He falls into denial. No. The summary? This world is a hell to live in. Hours later, he finds himself in a dark alley shouting at the top of his lungs. Why the hell did I end up in this game? He remembers how happy he was when he went to sleep that night, after finally getting the heavenly demon. But now he realizes the cruel irony of fate. He didn't reincarnate as a protagonist. He became a tutorial character. Maybe this is divine punishment for sacrificing all of his old characters. Finally, he arrives at Warrior Kim's house. Looking around, he lets out a heavy sigh. This crap is smaller than my bathroom. He can't believe this guy was so miserable. Exhausted, he throws himself onto the bed. His body is battered. He has no money. And now, what should he do? Then reality hits him like a punch to the stomach. If this is really the world of Arcane Seoul, events like nuclear wars, dimensional rifts, and even the rebirth of ancient gods are going to happen soon. And when that happens, this place will turn into a true hell on earth. He has no idea how he ended up here, but one thing is certain. If he stays still, he will definitely die. Then, suddenly, something occurs to him. His gaze locks on his own hands and he finally understands what this means. Without hesitation, he grabs a pen and raises it above his palm. Looking down, he murmurs that he needs to test this before it's too late. For a moment, he hesitates. But then, gathering all his courage, he stabs the pen into the top of his hand with all the strength he can muster. The pain explodes in his skin, and he lets out a loud scream as he pulls the pen out. It has pierced his hand completely. Immediately, a green aura begins to swirl around the wound, healing it before his eyes. A smile spreads across his face. I knew this would work. He has just obtained a trait called Wound Recovery. Now everything makes sense. The reason he created and sacrificed so many Warrior Kims was because this character is the only one without a base trait. However, this means it's possible to unlock and swap traits freely, allowing players to shape Warrior Kim however they want. For someone like him, who always played strategically and never had luck with rare characters, Warrior Kim was the best choice. And now, he is Warrior Kim. This means he can acquire any trait as long as he works to earn it. As he watches, his wounds start to fully heal, regenerating thanks to the newly acquired ability. He takes a deep breath and reflects. In Arcane Seoul, you die if you're poor, weak, or if your luck runs out. But he won't let that happen to him. He spent 10,000 hours playing this game. He knows all the shortcuts. He knows how to break the system. The scene cuts to his global ranking, which plummets from 115,000th place to the top 7,000. Then he climbs into the 3-digit ranks, finally reaching the top 9. Now he's above monsters, literally in the top 9. He doesn't know exactly what that means, but he'll figure it out. Plan change, make money. Now he walks confidently into a talent agency, muttering to himself. With Warrior Kim's body, this is a free pass to the top. Inside the player registration sector, a man reviews his file and raises an eyebrow. So, this is your first time at a player recruitment office? Joonsoo nods in confirmation. Yes. I want to enter the monopurification field. The recruiter stares at him, surprised. Monopurification? Joonsoo nods. He needs money to fund that pay-to-win gacha nonsense, and using his own body for work is the only option available. The man leans back in his chair, putting his feet on the table. He sighs, then looks at Joonsoo with an amused expression. They even call it monopurification, but do you have any idea what clearing a dungeon really means? The badge on the table reveals his name, Choi Seon-soo, Player Recruitment Director. Joonsoo crosses his arms and responds without hesitation. Of course I know. Seon-soo lets out a sarcastic laugh. Are you sure? Because honestly, your resume is completely empty. Joonsoo rolls his eyes and confidently responds. It's obvious that I understand how this damn game works. I know that the mana contained is what caused the monsters to overrun the world of Arcane Seoul. He continues explaining, clearing a dungeon isn't just about killing monsters and collecting loot. In the long run, prolonged exposure to the contained mana can erode someone's humanity, turning them into something else. This process is called mutation. And that's what makes the job so deadly. Joonsoo sighs and says it's fine. Once they gather enough people, he'll assign him to a team. Joonsoo thanks him, but the man still looks skeptical. He stares at him and asks if he's absolutely sure about going through with it. I am, Joonsoo answers without hesitation. Joonsoo sighs again and comments, I've seen many guys like you take this job for money and come out completely dead inside. Joonsoo laughs casually. Relax. I'll leave here in better shape than you. Joonsoo frowns, confused by the response, but Joonsoo just smiles and says, working hard without spending a dime has always been my specialty. First contact with the team. He then meets his team leader, a man named Deer. Deer crosses his arms and looks at him with a stern expression. So, you're the newbie they sent here? Joonsoo shrugs. I guess so. I'm just here because I was assigned. Without warning, Deer grabs the collar of his shirt, pulling him closer. You think this is a playground? He says, his eyes cold. Do you think you have what it takes to be here? Joonsoo doesn't answer, simply staring back at him. You'd better not beg me to save you if you start mutating, Deer continues. If I see the slightest sign of it, I'll kill you on the spot. Joonsoo smirks and calmly responds. I'll keep that in mind. For him, this is nothing new. In the real world, people always try to scare the newbies. But what really intrigues him is the fact that Deer is an R-rank character in the game. This is what he looked like before awakening. Joonsoo thinks, noticing that, at this moment, Deer's legs are still normal. Before the tension can rise any further, another man enters the room and sighs. Deer, I've told you not to treat the newbies like that. We're short on staff. The man is introduced as Hedgehog, a veteran with 5 years of dungeon clearing experience. Deer clicks his tongue, clearly irritated. Whatever. I just hope he doesn't mess things up. He then turns to the group and gives his instructions. We have 4 hours to clear 5 locations. No time to waste. Joonsoo watches Deer and thinks, this guy's much tougher than he was in the game. Hedgehog notices and pats him on the shoulder. Don't mind him. He may seem tough on the outside, but he's a good guy deep down. Joonsoo gives a nonchalant "hmm" in response, not paying much attention. The first dungeon. The first location they need to clear is a junkyard. As soon as they arrive, everyone complains about the terrible smell. No matter how many times I come here, I never get used to this stench, one of the workers says. Deer ignores the complaints and says, I'm opening the entrance. Get ready. He activates the access card and the dungeon door opens. What they see on the other side is simply disgusting. The place is covered in filth, a complete mess of waste and magical residue. Deer gives the command. Everyone, position yourselves. Inside the dungeon, there are low-level monsters known as contaminated slimes, creatures that feed on trash and residual mana. Joonsoo quickly assesses the situation and starts explaining to himself. The core of mana-contaminated clearing is eliminating these slimes. They're weak but troublesome. If you cut them in half, they just multiply. The only way to truly kill them is by destroying the small mana core inside their bodies. As they begin to fight them, the workers quickly realize the problem. How the hell are we supposed to find these cores in the middle of all this mess? Someone shouts, frustrated. Joonsoo takes a deep breath, steps forward and says, Get out of the way. Before they can react, he rushes toward the slimes, holding nothing but a shovel. He leaps into the air, preparing to strike. If this goes south, don't blame me. He shouts to his teammates. With a precise swing, he drives the shovel directly between the legs of one of the slimes, hitting the mana core dead center and destroying it instantly. The other workers stare in shock. Hedgehog's eyes widen. He's killing the slimes way too fast. Deer also watches, intrigued. Meanwhile, Joonsoo just smiles. This is perfect. He continues to move forward, destroying the cores one by one before the slimes can multiply. And the most impressive part? He's doing all of this with nothing but a shovel, without needing a real weapon. The other workers watch in disbelief as he moves rapidly across the battlefield, crushing slimes as if it's the easiest thing in the world. Is this really possible? One of the workers exclaims. Joonsoo answers with a confident smile. Of course it is. Suddenly the scene cuts to a flashback from 2 days ago. We see Joonsoo crawling on the ground as if searching for something. The curious detail? He's in the middle of a children's playground. Joonsoo looks around and murmurs to himself. It must be around here somewhere. After a few seconds of searching, his eyes finally spot what he's looking for. Found it. He crouches down and picks up a coin from the ground. The moment he holds it in his hand, An invisible notification seems to appear in his mind. Trait acquired, treasure hunter. A wide grin spreads across his face. Got it? This is the most important trait for Warrior Kim. Excited, he starts spinning in place, celebrating his achievement while holding the coin like a trophy. Nearby, a mother watching the scene covers her child's eyes and sighs. Just think happy thoughts. Joonsoo doesn't care about the strange looks and continues on his journey to acquire more essential traits. The price of evolution. He learns some fundamental rules while hunting for important traits. Cut to a less glamorous scene. Joonsoo is vomiting into a trash can, his face completely wrecked. That went too far, he groans. The truth is, to acquire a specific trait, he put himself in the middle of Asmongold's room, or at least something as disgusting as it. The notification appears once again. Trait acquired, contamination resistance. Joonsoo wipes his mouth, panting. That was the hardest one so far. The logic for acquiring traits in this world works exactly like in the game. If you meet the conditions, it's yours. He opens the mental menu and reviews his abilities, explaining to himself that it's possible to equip up to 6 traits at once, and that he can switch between them at will. Now, thanks to Treasure Hunter, he can see the mana cores inside the slimes, which explains why he's able to eliminate them so easily, even the giant ones. However, another slime is attacking his team, shooting a barrage of sticky slime. Deer gives an urgent warning. Don't let that stuff touch you. But Joonsoo simply walks through the toxic substance without hesitation. Finally, all this work paid off, he comments, satisfied. Thanks to contamination resistance, he feels no side effects from the slime. I personally wouldn't stick my tongue out in this situation. End of shift. The scene cuts to the bus on the way back home. Joonsoo leans against the window, exhausted. Even with all these traits helping me, working all day is still draining. Hedgehog smiles and comments. But thanks to you we finished early today. It was incredible seeing all of that up close. He pauses and asks curiously, are you hoping to awaken like Deer? Joonsoo laughs. No way. I only know how to use a shovel. Military training to blame. Hedgehog whistles. Impressive. As they talk, something strange happens. Small horns begin to grow from Hedgehog's head. Joonsoo furrows his brow. Your mutations are getting worse. You've been exposed to too much contaminated mana. He observes his colleague more closely. You don't look so good. You should rest for a bit. Hedgehog just shrugs and lets out a bitter laugh. I'd rather mutate than face the debt collectors. Joonsoo sighs, understanding his situation better. Now it makes sense why you wanted this job. Not exactly the kind of position people queue up for. 4 days later. A time skip brings us 4 days forward. The work finally comes to an end, but everyone is exhausted. We're done, someone murmurs. The team members are wrecked after days of non-stop dungeon clearing. On the other side, a worker is vomiting uncontrollably, almost doubled over. Joonsoo immediately recognizes him. Hedgehog. I told you not to push yourself so hard. Deer approaches and pats Joonsoo on the shoulder. The only reason you're still in one piece is because you're young. Never thought you'd do your part properly, but good job. Joonsoo gives a faint smile. It was thanks to everyone. But deep down he knows the truth. He only managed to do well because of his traits. He watches Deer, noticing that he's holding up surprisingly well against the exhaustion. For someone at our rank, he's holding strong. Before they can continue talking, a desperate scream echoes through the area. Joonsoo turns to find Hedgehog. Something is terribly wrong. A dark aura begins to form around him. His colleagues look horrified. What's happening to his spine? Deer runs over, his expression turning serious. Hedgehog. Hang in there. Joonsoo understands everything in that instant. Hedgehog is mutating. Deer tries to hold his friend back. Hold on. We need to get out of here. But it's too late. The mutation consumes Hedgehog completely, and his body explodes into pure energy, creating chaos around them. Joonsoo feels the impact and murmurs. Shit. Now this is serious. The battle begins. Hedgehog has lost all trace of his humanity. His silhouette now resembles that of a giant porcupine, and his foaming mouth makes him look like a rabid dog. Joonsoo watches the creature and immediately concludes. He's gone. There's nothing left of Hedgehog in there. If they don't defeat him, no one will walk out of here alive. But there's a problem. All the traits Joonsoo has acquired so far are specialized for monster cleaning. None of them are useful for combat. He struggles to find a way out, but nothing useful comes to mind. The first attack comes directly at him. Joonsoo has no time to react. The strike hits him square in the face, sending him flying like a ragdoll into a wall. He crashes to the ground, spitting blood. The power difference, it's absurd. A new notification appears. Trait acquired, endurance. He smiles faintly, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. It's still too early to give up. If he wants to survive, he needs to act now. He quickly opens the menu and starts switching his traits. I need something that will actually help. He selects strength, which will increase his physical power. Mana heart, which will allow him to control his magical energy. And endurance to reduce the damage he takes. Let's see what I can really do. The counterattack begins. Joonsoo finishes selecting his traits. Mana absorption allows him to absorb magical energy directly from the environment. Deep breathing accelerates his mana regeneration, ensuring a steady flow of energy. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle, corruption resistance. Now that his traits are set up, he's much better prepared for combat. Hedgehog charges at him, screaming as Joonsoo activates strength, multiplying his physical power by 10. He swings his shovel back and roars, spinning his body with full force before delivering a crushing blow. The impact hits Hedgehog square on, launching him into the air. Joonsoo feels a flicker of hope. This is working. I can really win this. But then, in midair, Hedgehog starts spinning violently, turning into a deadly ball. Joonsoo's eyes widen. That should be illegal. Hedgehog launches himself at Joonsoo like a projectile, but at the last second he crashes into a rock, losing control and flying back up. Joonsoo yells, completely confused. What am I supposed to do in this situation? He doesn't have time to react. The attack hits him full force, smashing him brutally into the ground. Hedgehog pulls away, laughing, but then his eyes widen as he notices something. From the rubble, Joonsoo leaps out, completely unharmed. Thanks to endurance, his resistance to damage was multiplied tenfold. He winces in pain, groaning. Even with endurance, this still hurts like hell. But he has no choice. If he stops now, he'll die. He steels himself, clenching his fists. With no other option, he launches into an unrelenting assault. Blow after blow, Joonsoo unloads a barrage of punches at Hedgehog, refusing to retreat. But then one of the spikes on Hedgehog's back curls backward and shoots out like a missile. Joonsoo dodges at the last second, but before he can react, a swarm of spikes is launched at him, piercing his body and embedding themselves in his flesh. He is thrown to the ground, completely covered in blood. But he refuses to give up. Joonsoo forces his body up, breathing heavily. Just a little more. He charges at Hedgehog again, preparing for another punch. But then, blood explodes into the air. Joonsoo feels something violently ripped from his body. His mind tries to process what just happened. His hand has been obliterated. His eyes widen in complete shock. His senses still can't understand how this happened. But before he can react, Hedgehog fires another spike. This time, his mind registers what's happening, but it's too late. His entire arm is torn off. The pain strikes him like an electric shock. Joonsoo lets out a scream of pure desperation. But Hedgehog doesn't stop. He clenches his fists, preparing a final crushing blow. Joonsoo closes his eyes, gasping. This is exactly what I expected. Hedgehog lands the blow. The ground shakes violently as the impact hits where Joonsoo had been lying. The price of victory. A flashback unfolds in his mind. He remembers when he used to play this game just as a mobile game. Back then, everything felt easy. All he had to do was press a single button to defeat monsters. He never stopped to think about what the character felt. He pushed it to the limit over and over under the guise of efficient training. But now he finally understands. He understands the pain. He understands the suffering required to earn even a mediocre trait. And above all, he understands that there is no victory without sacrifice. When Hedgehog looks down, he realizes something is wrong. Joonsoo blocked the attack. His arm regenerated. Before Hedgehog can react, Joonsoo rushes at him with lightning speed. His fist connects with the creature's face, and the impact is devastating. Hedgehog is thrown away, sliding across the ground, incapacitated. Joonsoo exhales deeply, gritting his teeth. There is no victory without a price to pay. He looks at himself. His muscles are pulsating and growing uncontrollably. His body has been pushed to its absolute limit. A notification appears in his mind. Trait acquired, mutant muscles. Joonsoo smiles despite the pain. The real fight is just beginning. The awakening of the monster. Joonsoo's body is still covered in spikes. Hedgehog is thrown against a wall and Joonsoo grins to himself. The reason he had recklessly charged at him with all those attacks was for the trait. By pushing his limits with mana heart and strength, he knew he could gain something greater. And now they merge, activating his new trait, mutant muscles. Hedgehog charges at him again without hesitation. But Joonsoo stands his ground. Everything I've done so far was for this moment. Hedgehog throws a punch. Joonsoo easily blocks it. Then he starts to laugh. This doesn't work anymore. Go ahead, hit me again. Hedgehog snarls and then his fist deforms, sprouting sharp spikes. He lunges forward, slamming the punch directly into Joonsoo's chest. The impact is brutal. Joonsoo is thrown to the ground, his body pierced from all sides. It seems like he won't get up from this. But then, his body begins to regenerate. His organs rebuild. But something feels off. The regeneration is not just healing him, it's transforming him. Hedgehog watches, confused, as Joonsoo unlocks a new trait, mutant body. His arms grow, his structure expands, and his physique now matches Hedgehog's. Joonsoo smiles. Thanks, Hedgehog. I needed this. All of this happened because of you. He moves forward without hesitation. Hedgehog howls and charges straight at him. Neither of them backs down. What follows is a battle of pure brute force. Punch after punch, they exchange blows evenly matched. The monster battle. Nearby, Deer stirs. Dazed, he lifts his head. What the hell is all that noise? His blurry vision clears, and he freezes. A monstrous battle unfolds before him, something straight out of a kaiju movie. His eyes lock on Joonsoo. Wait, that's Warrior Kim? Deer can't believe what he's seeing. A normal human can't fight a mutant on equal terms, can they? Joonsoo and Hedgehog trade powerful punches at the same time, and both are thrown back, crashing to the ground simultaneously. Joonsoo grits his teeth, breathing deeply. This isn't as easy as I thought. Physically, he's now the same size as Hedgehog. But if this keeps going, he'll end up at a disadvantage. The breaking point. Hedgehog lets out a deafening scream. Joonsoo narrows his eyes. This is dangerous, but I have no choice. He activates corruption resistance, a trait that's helped him before. And then, he deletes it. Deer is shocked. What? He just erased a skill. Joonsoo's body shakes violently. And then, he starts transforming again. His skin darkens, twisting and stretching, his muscles expanding uncontrollably. He fights to keep his sanity, but the process has already begun. Joonsoo is undergoing a full monsterification. The primal roar. His skin turns a deep red. His body grows even larger, becoming colossal. Then, he lets out a primal, deep and terrifying roar. The sound shakes the air, a fearsome bellow that freezes Hedgehog in terror. For the first time, Hedgehog hesitates. Above Joonsoo's mutated mouth, a magic circle begins to glow. And then, a burst of pure energy is unleashed. The attack hits Hedgehog squarely, sending him flying far, far away. What the hell was that? Deer watches in pure shock. What the hell was that? He looks up, and freezes. A monstrous, gigantic, and deformed version of Joonsoo glares down at him. Deer feels a chill run down his spine. He really turned into a mutant? How is this possible? But for Joonsoo, it's just another trait. New trait acquired, mutant. Deer swallows hard, his instincts screaming at him to flee immediately. Holy shit. He begins to crawl away from Joonsoo, panic taking over. Then suddenly, Joonsoo extends his hand toward him. Deer shuts his eyes tightly, bracing for the worst. But instead of a fatal blow, he hears coughing and groaning in pain. His eyes open. Joonsoo is standing, panting. And just like that, he's human again. The final sacrifice. Then Joonsoo collapses face first into the ground, muttering that he made it. We learn that corruption resistance is the last line of defense. If you're possessed by the mutant form and mutant muscles, and you erase the resistance, you turn into a full mutant. The common belief is that once transformed, you can never go back to normal, but Joonsoo knew otherwise. He needed this, and he was sure he could change the trait back while still thinking clearly, even if only for a second. That's why, even though his body was disintegrating and rebuilding repeatedly, and the pain was unbearable, he kept fighting for his sanity, allowing him to swap corruption resistance for the mutant trait. The end of the battle. The scene widens, showing an aerial view of the area where the cleanup is happening, and Joonsoo is exhausted. He says it felt like every muscle and bone in his body was moving, and he never wants to go through that again. Struggling, he gets up, stumbling toward Hedgehog's body. A purple orb leaves Hedgehog's mouth. Joonsoo grabs it, and it's revealed to be a level 1 mono core. He starts to smile sarcastically, saying it was worth it. Soon he starts dancing, joking that clearing the field is really profitable. Deer approaches and asks if he's alright, commenting on his mutant transformation and asking what happened. Joonsoo replies that it would be annoying if strange rumors spread, so he just says he kinda bet he could turn back and got really lucky. Deer is surprised, saying it was an insane risk, and Joonsoo hands him some level 0 mono cores since he now has a level 1 mono core. Joonsoo says he wants to head back now, breathe some fresh air, and everyone is surprised since he saved their lives and even gave mono cores, hoping they'll keep his secret. But Deer looks at him with suspicion. Back at Seonsoo's building, we see him starting to flatter Joonsoo heavily. Joonsoo wonders what all this flattery is about. Seonsoo responds that he should have said something if he were a superhuman, so they could have given him proper work instead. Now Joonsoo understands why all the praise. In the world of Arcane Seoul, a superhuman awakens a skill that grants them powerful mana. In a world like this, where strength equals power and authority, superhumans are practically the nobility. But it makes sense for Seonsoo to think this way since it takes a superhuman to defeat mutants. Though in Joonsoo's case, it's just a game design flaw since he can acquire traits. Seonsoo puts his hand in his pocket and says he should pay Joonsoo for the cleanup. Joonsoo responds that would be nice, trying to stay calm, but inwardly he has that mischievous smile, thinking he'll let Seonsoo think he's a superhuman for now. Seonsoo pulls out a mountain of cash from his pocket and says that they cleaned 5 regions, and that they get 20% of the total fee, which amounts to 50 million wons. If they split it among everyone in the group, Joonsoo should receive 5 million, but this time they'll do it differently. Seonsoo places all the money on the table and says they'll only keep 5% of his share and will even give him a bonus of 12 million. Joonsoo's smile reaches a whole new level now, with his tongue even turning into a heart. He exits the room singing, and someone comments that he seems to be in a great mood, while the other says he must have been well paid. Joonsoo confirms, saying yes, since they finished the job, and acknowledges the man as someone he's worked with. The man explains that he's here because he wants to ask a favor. Joonsoo asks what he means by that, and the man reveals that his wife is sick and asks if he can lend him some money. He apologizes for asking since they don't know each other. Joonsoo responds that it's not a good idea to help someone when you know nothing about them, because they could end up stabbing you in the back, and it's hard enough to stay afloat right now. Joonsoo takes the man's hand, which is pleading, and tells him that he's much older than Joonsoo, so he doesn't need to do this. Although it's not much, he can use it and hands over many level 0 mono cores to the man. Joonsoo says he feels too bad to ignore him. What a conversation, huh? The twist. Later that night, we hear the man laughing, calling Joonsoo an idiot, saying he pretended to be poor, but gave him so many mono cores. He's boasting to Deer. Deer replies that the man must be new to this kind of thing, and the man says he would have given more if Joonsoo had said his son was sick too. And he complains that what's annoying is that Joonsoo was paid more than everyone but gave such a tiny part, along with that superhuman talk about the profit split. Deer sighs, saying that Joonsoo isn't a superhuman and that it's better they teach him a lesson. The beggar asks if Deer has any ideas, and Deer smiles, saying that idiot probably has some strange skill. While Joonsoo is happily helping the poor, Deer says that since they know his secret, they can teach him a lesson about how truly scary the world can be. The scene shifts to a luxury resort, where we see Joonsoo through a window, receiving a massage. He comments, saying that money is really wonderful. He never imagined he'd see the day he could get a massage in a place like this, and being in the game is so much better than reality. The masseuse presses hard on his arm, and Joonsoo mentions he spent 3 whole days resting at the hotel but still feels pain. From now on, he'll have to think twice before using any mutant-related traits. Changing traits isn't as all-powerful as he thought. His body changes depending on the traits, and the intensity of the side effects increases as his body changes. The problem now is survival after limiting the use of traits. He looks out the window and recognizes a few people, saying that's the Iron Fist gang, while we see them all by the pool. He explains that Arcane Seoul is ruled by local gangs, not the law. That's natural since there are so many monsters around, and people have to rely on superhumans. He says he's managed to survive so far, but it would be foolish to rely only on his traits in such a dangerous place. He starts to smile, saying that in the end, it all comes down to being overloaded with equipment. He goes to a miscellaneous goods store, and a woman asks if he's there to sell things. He says yes and mentions he has some monster byproducts. She looks at his clothes and warns that they don't buy level 0 mono cores since he's not dressed well. He replies that he already knew that. He pulls something out of his bag and says that this is what he would like to sell, revealing a blue mono core, which surprises her. She asks if it's a level 2 mono core, and he confirms, telling her to take a good look at it. He comments that it's nice to see she's surprised. He's really happy he managed to get a level 2 mono core, and the effort at the hotel was worth it. If he can sell it for the highest price, this will be the right path. He asks if she sells weapons and armor. She replies that she does and lets him into the back area. As he enters, he's surprised, saying that it looks like she has everything back there. He thinks the government should start keeping an eye on this woman since all the essential game items are there as well. She tells him to make himself comfortable. He responds affirmatively and then begins to get excited. He says that now is the time to get properly equipped. He starts putting various weapons into his backpack and says that now that he has weapons, it finally feels like he's playing Arcane Seoul. Then he hears a woman calling for him and turns around. She asks almost casually if he's a mercenary, saying she needs help. He replies that he's not a mercenary and suggests she should look for someone else, but she pulls out a little money, explaining that she's on a business trip and that the Iron Fist gang scared her. She asks if he could protect her until she reaches her lodging. He realizes she's trying to offer him at least 500,000 to be her bodyguard, and wonders if he should accept now that he's well equipped. He places a hand on her shoulder, saying that he can't ignore a lady in distress, and tells her it's time to go, looking ready for the situation. They start walking through some alleyways and she says they're almost there. He wonders why she's staying in such a shady place, saying that, forget about people, there isn't even an ant around there. She quickly dashes around a corner and when he turns, all he sees is darkness. She says they're nearly there and urges him to hurry. He replies that it's too dark and he can't see anything. Then his eyes begin to glow yellow as he acquires the night vision trait, and says that now he can see, but he didn't plan for this. In her hands there's a pistol aimed directly at him, and she remarks that he's a lot more cautious than she expected. He wonders who she is and if all of this was a trap, only for him to turn around and see Deer, who laughs and asks where he thinks he's going. Deer says it's good to see him again like this, asking if he agrees. Joonsoo asks what he did to deserve this and Deer responds that he didn't do anything, he just looks stupid. There's no other reason, calling him naive. Joonsoo lets his weapons drop, immediately rushing to knock the woman down. Deer asks why he would start a conversation just to run away. He tells the woman to shoot him and she fires her gun directly at him, hitting him in the back. He starts falling down the stairs. Then Deer asks, "What the hell?" saying she should have shot him in the leg, not the chest. She responds that it's better than him running away. Deer says, "Damn, I think he's dead. Honestly, I think the guy can just get up, he looks fine." The woman mentions that someone might want to buy his body since he came back from being a mutant. The beggar says it's time to loot his gear now. When Deer looks down again, he says there's no way and they should do this first, only to find that Joonsoo's body has disappeared. They all start wondering where the hell he went, growing uneasy. The street lamp breaks and the beggar is hit in the neck. The rest of them start panicking, wondering what's happening, and Deer says there's no way he's still alive. Joonsoo says that he can't die at the hands of someone who repays kindness with betrayal, and it's a good thing he left the store after putting on the bulletproof vest. Thanks to that, he acquired the trait of playing dead after being shot. Deer looks around in panic, saying he can't see anything since the street lamp broke, wondering where Joonsoo is. Joonsoo suddenly appears behind him, saying he's right there. He says he saved his life, so now he's going to take it, landing a punch directly to Deer's face. Joonsoo punches Deer in the face, sending blood flying everywhere. Deer falls to the ground but instantly gets back up, wiping his mouth. He stands up and kicks Joonsoo, who dodges. Joonsoo says he should be grateful for being saved in the first place, asking if Deer thinks trying to kill the person who saved his life is the right thing to do. As Deer is about to fall to the ground from the attack, Joonsoo tells him to bite the curb and is about to land a kick when the woman shoots her gun at Joonsoo, asking Deer if he's okay. She manages to hit Joonsoo in the arm with a shot, and he says he was too careless. In Arcane Seoul, the scariest thing isn't the monsters or mutants but the people. He was incredibly naive and trusted them too easily. He places his hand on his waistband and pulls out his weapon to avoid making the same mistake again. He shoots the gun out of the girl's hand and then shoots one of the men in the shoulder, telling them that's enough, as we see both of them on the ground, writhing in pain. Something bounces off the wall, and Joonsoo turns, thinking he should kill Deer to stay safe, only for Deer to launch a surprise attack. Joonsoo wasn't expecting that but manages to react just in time by blocking the kick, although he loses his weapon. We see that Deer's legs have now transformed, and he's awakened as a level 1 superhuman. Joonsoo says the game is poorly made, explaining that the superhuman awakening is something all playable characters can undergo. It's considered the basic growth system in the game. According to the world of Arcane Seoul, a level 1 superhuman is strong enough to threaten an ordinary civilian with an automatic rifle. Joonsoo starts backing away to create distance, while Deer declares he will kill him, and now Joonsoo has to deal with a superhuman with nothing but his body. Deer disappears instantly before Joonsoo, and he wonders where the hell he went. We learn that Deer has two unique traits: stereoscopic movement and kick. Stereoscopic movement allows him to use his incredible leg elasticity to move freely in any direction he wants. In his case, he's running on wall. Joonsoo looks up and sees him coming from above. He used stereoscopic movement to gain height and is now coming down with a kick, using both the momentum and the height. Joonsoo says he needs to dodge this, and he rolls to the side, letting the ground get completely smashed. Deer is surprised and irritated that he dodged, preparing to attack again, saying that this time Joonsoo won't be able to dodge. The impact happens and Deer starts to smile, thinking it's over. But Joonsoo says, "Sorry, but I didn't plan on dodging." As we see, he blocked the kick with a weapon, calling him a mutt who doesn't know his place. He knew buying that extendable baton was a great idea. A few hours ago in the girl's store, he was wondering if a weapon would really be worth it. Since Warrior Kim is a warrior class character, even though he gets stronger, there's a limit to how effectively he can use a weapon. That's why he decided to buy a close combat weapon, which turned out to be nothing other than this extendable baton. Each character has weapons and traits that are more effective for their class. We see Deer's leg trembling, and Joonsoo manages to push him back. To defeat Deer, he needed to use a close combat weapon and traits suited for a warrior like him. He swings the baton downward, hitting Deer and knocking him to the ground, then acquires a trait called Strike. This is a trait specific to the warrior class. He then starts spamming his attacks to acquire even more traits, using moves like a downward strike, uppercut, and even an advancing attack. He tries a side strike, though it's unclear if he gained a trait from that moment. Deer searches for an opening and as soon as he finds it, delivers a direct kick toward Joonsoo. Joonsoo hesitates, wondering whether to dodge or not, but decides he can't stop now after coming this far. He grits his teeth, saying that even if he has to break bones, he'll block the attack with his elbow, hitting Deer's leg. He tells himself he needs to keep attacking. The fight continues with blows exchanged one after the other. Then Joonsoo acquires a trait called Combo and starts smiling, saying, "That's it. The best trait build for the warrior class at the early stages is combining strike and combo." He uses his left hand for punches and his right hand to swing the baton, taking down Deer like it's a cut scene. Deer begs him to stop as he begins to lose consciousness, but Joonsoo throws the baton directly into Deer's chest, hitting him with the strike trait. Deer finally loses his strength and collapses to the ground. Joonsoo shouts, saying that he succeeded and defeated an awakened one. His arms begin to burn, as though the air itself is searing his skin. He wonders what this sensation is as he looks at them. His whole body starts to ache as a red aura begins to swirl around him. He says he can feel something about to overflow inside him, thinking he knows what's happening. There's a brilliant explosion from where he stands, and now, with a golden aura surrounding his fingers, he says, "This is the day I learned the cruel truth of the world of Arcane Seoul, and now I am awakened as a level 1 superhuman." Joonsoo clenches his fist with excitement and starts shouting, saying that the time has finally come. He then pulls the fiercest face he's ever made, resembling Lloyd, and is so pumped up that he does a handstand, announcing that he's about to start taking low-interest loans and landing high-paying jobs. A man approaches him, asking what he thinks he's doing. When Joonsoo turns around, he's shocked to see a giant, old man holding an enormous weapon. This man is Iron Fist Kim, the second basic character available in Arcane Seoul after Warrior Kim. He's a reinforced soldier class character who specializes in firearms, primarily using his prosthetic arm to shoot. The issue is Iron Fist Kim is the feared leader of the Iron Fist gang, and since Joonsoo fought within their territory, he's probably stirred up quite a mess. Iron Fist asks if Joonsoo checked where he was before all of this. Joonsoo responds that he was caught off guard and couldn't just stand there and not fight back. Iron Fist unlocks his weapon, saying this means they're more terrifying than his own gang. Joonsoo is taken aback, saying that if he fights under these conditions, he'll die for nothing. Iron Fist presses the weapon directly to Joonsoo's chest, stating that he made a terrible choice and will show him what happens when someone messes with his territory. Joonsoo pauses for a moment, then asks if that's the best he's got, mentioning that Iron Fist forgot something. Joonsoo grabs the weapon and puts his finger on the trigger. He shoots himself in the chest, saying that he's not the type to die so easily. Iron Fist is stunned, seeing the guy just kill himself with his own weapon, calling him a psychopath for pulling the trigger on himself. Joonsoo starts laughing, asking if that's all, saying it was easy. We see that he acquired the regeneration trait. Iron Fist laughs, calling his ability interesting. Joonsoo explains that the upgraded version of Wound Recovery is regeneration, and it can only be obtained when you become a level 1 superhuman. He warns Iron Fist that it will be the end for them if they start underestimating him. He realizes he'll need to bluff his way out of this. He points to the triple homicide case behind him, saying that, as they can see, he didn't survive by chance and that he doesn't care who they are. If they mess with Warrior Kim, they'd better be prepared. Iron Fist laughs, asking if that's his name, saying he likes his audacity, but he'll let him go this time. However, now Joonsoo owes him a favor. He puts a hand on Joonsoo's shoulder, saying that he surely knows what he means. Joonsoo says he'll remember this, wondering if maybe Iron Fist recognized him. Iron Fist then extends his hand, suggesting that they might work together on a job next time. When Joonsoo looks at her hand, he thinks that Iron Fist is not the type of person who would betray him. In that case, it wouldn't be bad to form a connection here. He says it's a deal as they shake hands, telling her he'll see her next time. The scene then shifts to the superhuman tower in Jamsil, where Joonsoo says he had no idea when he first saw this place in the game, but now he realizes that it's really impressive, completely different from anything he's seen before. A woman then catches his attention, thanking him for visiting the tower and asking how she can assist him. The guy is stunned by her beauty and mentions that she looks familiar, wondering if she's an NPC. She tells him that if he's there for certification, he needs to head to the machine to measure his mana and trait circuits. He thanks her and starts walking towards it, thinking that he didn't even ask for help, but she guided him anyway. It just shows how much of a novice he must look. He thinks that once he gets his certification, he'll truly start his life in Arcane Seoul. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise that startles him. When everyone tells him to look at the ceiling, saying the saint has arrived, he looks up and sees a bright light descending from an airborne ship. As the light appears right in front of him, we see some enchanting text spread across, while people are teleported. Joonsoo is shocked, recognizing it as the old father's order and wondering why a boss monster is there. People begin praying, saying it's an honor to be in her presence, but Joonsoo remembers that, since he's still in the tutorial timeline, she's a saint and not a boss monster. As the story progresses, it's revealed that the order is actually a cult disguised as a religion, and she is a complete psychopath. While people continue to praise the saint, they mention that she must be there for a level-up renewal. She then starts releasing a powerful aura, so strong that it knocks people down, with a golden light pulsing around her. Joonsoo looks away, saying that it's a rather flashy way to do things, and that it's kind of too noisy. As the machine begins reading her mana, it starts collecting her energy until it completely disappears, leaving everyone in suspense, wondering what she'll get. We then see that she is 27 years old, a priestess class with mana level 8 and a 6-layer circuit. They can't believe she's only level 8. She smiles as they say she has up to 6 traits, which the layered circuits represent. But Joonsoo has a different opinion. He's sweating nervously, saying that it's not the time to celebrate. A level 8 superhuman can be compared to an aircraft carrier, and she's a walking national powerhouse. Why are strong women always crazy? But even if he tried to warn them, they would just treat him like a madman and stone him to death as if it were the Middle Ages. For now, he decides to just measure his mana. It would draw too much attention if he had 6 traits, so he'll lower it to 3. The saint suddenly turns, sensing something. When her men ask what's going on, she says that she's found something that caught her attention. She appears right behind Joonsoo, saying that he has an interesting ability. He says, "Damn," surprised, and then repeats what she just said, asking if she really noticed that he swapped his traits.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see another part. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time. Bye-bye.